Scene 21, early sophomore year. Sophomore year didn't feel new like freshman year did. There was no shock to it, no wide eyed wonder. It felt familiar, like the building already knew you, and now it was waiting to see what you were going to do. Walking back into William Penn, I didn't feel small anymore. Not super comfortable either, just there. People said my name easier now, like they practiced it over the summer. I started noticing how attention worked, how it followed patterns and lingered. After spending time in Newcastle with Frankie that summer, there was a lot more familiar faces as well. Virginia not being there was the main thing I felt, even before I thought it. Summer version of her didn't fit inside school hours. She was working mornings now, sometimes doubles. When she came around after work, it was quick swing by, going for a short ride, maybe sit outside for a minute. She still looked at me the same, but time put pressure on her. She talked about money, about schedules, about not wanting to be stuck. I listened, but school had me on a different speed. Bells, periods, hallways full of noise. I started realizing we were sharing less of the same air. Rhonda was back though, carrying a whole different posture. She didn't float anymore. She moved direct. Caught me in the hall once. She said my name like she expected me to stop. You good? She asked. I said, yeah. She nodded like she already knew that wasn't the whole answer. We didn't talk long, but our conversation sat with me longer than it should have. She wasn't asking for anything, which somehow made things a lot heavier. Classes settled in. Teachers started calling on me without hesitation. Group projects landed on me as default leader, even when I didn't volunteer. I wasn't loud. I wasn't flashy. I just paid attention, and people felt that. Denise's words from last year came back to me like a boomerang. Trust it without trying. I didn't know if that was a gift or a curse. Mitch was already locked in for the season. Summer workouts for football had him built different now, and that growth spurt over the summer had him standing at 5'10". He talked less about what he was doing and more about what he needed to improve. Friday nights meant stadium lights at Mount Pleasant High, and the bleachers stayed packed. By the time kickoff came, there wasn't an open seat in the building. Mitch loved that moment right before the game started. He'd come out with the rest of his team, helmet tucked under his arms, eyes forward and focused. The crowd noise would rise a little when people recognized him, and he handled it the same way he handled everything else. Just another day at the park. I'd catch him after games sometimes, sweat still pouring, eyes steady. I'm good, he'd say before I can even ask. He was. Too good not to be noticed. Mount Pleasant started off the year 6-0, and it wasn't luck. Week after week, they found ways to win. Sometimes by a lot, sometimes by grinding it out late in the fourth quarter. The kind of wins that make teams believe in itself a little more each time. Mitch was right in the middle of it, not chasing attention, just doing his job. CeeLo moved like somebody managing multiple versions of himself. At school, he was smooth, jokes timed right, always surrounded. Outside of it, he disappeared more, showed up late, left early. When I asked him what he was on, he'd say, I'm on my own time. I didn't press him, just let him handle his biz. Still, every now and then, you could see the weight of it. Little things. The way he'd get quiet out of nowhere, like his mind jumped ahead to something else. The way his phone buzzed more than it used to, screen lighting up with names you never seen before. Sometimes he'd step away to answer a call and come back a few minutes later like nothing had happened. If you didn't know him well, you'd never catch it. but I known C long enough to see the difference between when he was just being himself and when he was holding something together. He might not have been holding it together perfectly, but it was well enough that most people never even noticed the cracks. One afternoon, walking home alone from the bus, I realized something. I hadn't let myself say it out loud. Summer let things float along, while school made them land. Whatever I'd stepped into with Virginia wasn't bad, it just wasn't built for hallways. It wasn't built for high school schedules, and it definitely wasn't built for 15-year-old mornings. I didn't break anything off, not yet. Just early sophomore year taught me this much. Choosing someone doesn't stop your world from asking who you are, it just makes the answer come with consequences. Scene 22, the introduction. Introducing Frankie felt natural to me. It didn't feel like I was bringing a stranger around. It felt like I was connecting two parts of my life that hadn't met yet. We pulled up outside Erica's house that day, late afternoon, not quite dark yet. Tanya was there with Mitch, sitting on his lap on the steps. Erica was leaning against CeeLo's chest. He leaned against the railing, her arms folded, watching everything like she always did. Frankie fit in easy. He wasn't loud. He wasn't trying too hard, just talking, joking when it made sense, listening when it didn't. Mitch picked up on him quick. You could tell by the way he asked him questions. How you know Ace? What side of town you be on? You playing anything? Frankie answered everything straight. No extras. That's what Mitch respected. Even Tanya smiled at him a few times, which meant something. Erica didn't say much. She just didn't dismiss him either. That was her version of approval. CeeLo was the only one who didn't fully engage. He wasn't rude. He laughed when everybody else laughed, added a comment here and there, but eyes stayed on Frankie longer than necessary. Not curious, measuring. I caught it, but I didn't say anything. At some point, CeeLo tapped my arm. Come here real quick. We stepped off the porch just far enough so nobody could hear. What's up, I asked. He looked back toward the group before speaking. I gotta go handle something. I nodded. All right, so go ahead. He shook his head slightly. Nah, y'all need to roll with me. Me and Mitch? Yeah. I glanced back at the porch. Frankie was mid-story. Mitch was actually laughing. Tanya leaning into him. Erica watching like she always did. What about Frankie? I said. I can't just leave him. CeeLo's jaw tightened a little. Then bring him. The way he said it wasn't agreement, it was adjustment. You sure? I asked. He looked at me straight this time. If you coming, he coming. That told me everything I needed to know. The ride felt different from the start. Not tense exactly, just quiet in a way that made you pay attention. Mitch sat in the passenger seat, elbow on the window, watching the streets pass. Frankie was in the back with me, looking out both sides like he was mapping out the area without trying. CeeLo didn't play music, didn't talk much either, just drove. We pulled up over South Bridge. It was a narrow block, row homes, a couple people outside, but not nobody outside, if that makes sense. Like everybody was present, but they wasn't available. CeeLo put the car in park, but didn't turn it off. He turned slightly in his seat and looked back at Frankie. You stay in the car, he said. Keep your eyes open. Frankie nodded once. I got you. No questions. That was the first thing CeeLo respected, even if he didn't trust him. Me, Mitch, and CeeLo stepped out. The air felt heavier immediately. We walked up to a house in the middle of the block. To me, the vibe felt just like the day in Philly with V and Denise. I immediately kept my eyes peeled around us, and I looked back toward Frankie. The door cracked open and the conversation was low. Nothing seemed unusual until it was. At first, it was just tone, the way voices tightened, the way one of the dudes shifted his stance just a little too wide. Mitch felt it. You could see it in his demeanor without him saying a word. Then it happened fast. Too fast to think shit through. One of them stepped up closer to CeeLo, and one came from down the street like he was just walking by and stepped up behind us. Run that. Everything in me locked up for half a second, but Mitch didn't. He had shifted, stepping slightly to the side, putting himself in position where he could see both of them. Not aggressive, just ready. CeeLo didn't panic. I think that was the scariest part. He looked at them like he was calculating, not reacting. "You know who I am," he said, calm. One of them smirked. "That don't matter right now." From the car, Frankie saw everything. The shift, the positioning, the moment it stopped being a conversation. Inside the car, he leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing. He didn't overthink, and without hesitation, he moved. He stepped out and reached under the seat like it was second nature. Back on the porch, everything was seconds away from going completely left. One of the dudes reached out to Mitch and stepped forward. That's when Frankie came up the steps. "Yo." It wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. Everybody turned around and Frankie stood there, arm low, but steady. Not waving it around trying to look tough. The energy shifted instantly. The dude snuck up behind us, sucked his teeth, and stepped back slightly. "Aight, y'all good," he said, like he wasn't just on some shit. CeeLo turned first, walking back to the car like the situation was already over. Mitch stayed a half a step behind him. Frankie didn't move until we were close to the car. Then he backed up and got in the car and closed the door. The ride back was silent. Not the same silence as before. This one had weight. CeeLo finally spoke after a few blocks. "You ain't say you was on that." Frankie shrugged slightly from the back seat. "You ain't asked." Mitch let out a small breath. Not quite a laugh. I stared out the window, replaying everything. CeeLo glanced at me through the rear view, then back at the road. He didn't apologize. He didn't thank him either. But the way he drove after that, he was thinking. CeeLo didn't like the feeling that he wasn't in control of that situation, but he was grateful for the fact that Frankie came along. When we got back, the porch looked the same. Erica and Tanya still there in their same spots, like nothing had happened, but everything had. I looked at Frankie, then CeeLo, then at Mitch. It was clear we weren't just going to be crossing paths with this introduction. We were bringing different worlds into the same space, and there was no way that was going to stay under control for long.